So now I would like to officially welcome you to our second session of Beyond Resiliency with Krista Gregory. Make sure I get that right. Krista was like, I am not the person. Sorry, Krista Gregory. I am so excited to have you here. And, since our last time, I shared the Plum Soul line with my colleagues and have used that with them and have used it even on myself today. I checked in at one point and realized I had to use the bathroom and I needed to stretch my back. So thank you. And take it away.
All right. Well, it's so good to be with you all. I'll check in with you all myself right now so you know what's happening in this next hour for me. I am talking to you from my mom's apartment. She's 86 years old and she has COVID. And I have been taking care of her for the last several days. It's been quite a journey. So if for some reason I need to cut this short at some point, I will let you know. Malou offered me, she's like, do you want to not do this? And I was like, no, I need to be with my people. I think it'll encourage me to be with you all as chaplains who understand this work and understand these struggles. And so, but if for some reason I need to drop off camera quickly, that's the circumstance I happen to be in. And I'm going to review a little bit of what we just to kind of get us caught up from where we were last time, and then give you a preview to next week. And then we're going to jump into what I have brought for you today. So I run a program in Austin, Texas at Dell Children's Medical Center called the Center for Resiliency, but we reach out to healthcare professionals across the globe. In fact, I was just on the phone on Zoom actually yesterday with one of our colleagues in Turkey. Wonderful Muslim woman who works with at a university there with nursing students, and we were talking about how to get some of these tools to those that are in the earthquake zone so that they have stuff they can use on the fly, which is a lot of what we teach is what do you do on the fly while it's happening and not in your moment of self-care. So you learned that from me last time, but if you weren't with me before, you know that I'll just tell you that the kind of things that we teach are things that you can do in the middle of your work. I was in the adult world for about 10 years as a chaplain in an adult hospital. Then I did some overseas work, missionary work, and then I came back into the United States, and I was in Morocco and Spain, and then I came back to the States and have been in the pediatric world since. So I've got both sides of the spectrum. I've also worked hospice. I've also worked psych and behavioral health, kind of all over the map. So I know that several of you are from meeting you last time. Some of you are from the hospice arena. Some of you are in the adult world. Some of you in the peds world. So I hope what I bring you will be super relevant. Relevancy is what matters to me the most. One thing I'll tell you that from my own thing as we start is that as a chaplain, I could have taught the self-care classes in my sleep with my eyes closed, but it didn't mean I actually did anything. I really didn't. It just, and nurses would tell me the same thing. It'd be like, I get home at night and I'm too tired, and then I feel guilty to not do self-care. So that's not what I do, and that's not what I teach, because when I started this, I had a NICU manager say to me, if you want me to take care of myself, Krista, I need a personality transplant. And what she meant by that was, right, like she said, I've been a caregiver my whole life. I don't really know how to do this any differently in a way that actually is good for me. So we're going to start today. You're going to learn a lot of different tools. I think I've got 3 in particular I want you to learn. Some of it's going to be familiar to a lot of you because it's the work we do. I want you to today, as we have this hour together, experience it for you. And then later you can take it and teach it to other people. And if you want me to send you the script or whatever, we can do that too. So don't worry about writing a million things down. I'd rather you just be in the space and go, okay, here's what I need. Malou made a reference to what we learned last time. We did talk about the plimsoll line. You can watch the video, so I won't go over it too much, but it's a technique we use to measure, kind of just really get aware of where we are. What do I need right now? And how do I adjust my perspective in this moment? I will say for me right now, my plimsoll line, your plimsoll line is your water line on your boat. I'm riding pretty close to the edge of that water line with what's going on in my personal life. And by the way, the magnet site visit is happening at my hospital today. So I ran over there for a few minutes, presented to magnet, and have run back to my mom. So I'm not underwater, but I'm pretty close. So I check in with myself regularly and with my team, and they ask me that. But we're going to start with something I like to call finding your anchor. I was using it this morning, and I was teaching it yesterday afternoon to a nurse that was with me. And it's a tool you can use. It's a mindfulness tool. I oftentimes, when I teach stuff, don't use the word mindfulness just because people have all kinds of weird feelings about that word and think we're talking about meditation or yoga. And I just call it what it is. It's called finding your anchor. If you want to stand up, you can. I'm going to say seated because I'll have to adjust my camera, and I'm just on my laptop today because I don't have multiple screens. You can do this seated or you can stand up. You can do it both ways, and I'll give you instructions for both. We teach it. When I teach it both ways because sometimes I have people that standing is not an option for them. But if you can, stand, because most of the time as a chaplain, you're on your feet unless you're in the room with a patient and sitting with them. But you can use it that way too. But this is something you can use walking between rooms. It's something you can use when you're standing in the middle of a meeting. Something you can use in the middle of a meeting, and you can notice the bottoms of your thighs. But whenever I'm feeling kind of overloaded, like I am right now, or I'm experiencing high stress, or I'm with a group of people that are, it can go both ways. You can find your anchor. Obviously, I use boat metaphors a lot, so just hang with me on that. It's kind of fun. But you can find your anchor by bringing your awareness to the present moment. Your anchor can be anything. It can be the soles of your feet. I'm talking about the bottoms of your feet. It can be your breath. It can be a sound. It can be a spot on the wall. Anything that you experience in one of your five senses. We're going to play with our feet or the backs of our thighs if we're sitting, just for this exercise. But you can, and if you can't access your feet, like I said, you can feel your anchor in the palms of your hands, the backs of your thighs. I want you to take a deep breath as we start. Deep breathing is good. If you need to know the research on that, I'll send you 25 articles on it because there's a lot of neuroscience research on deep breathing. It's not just for yoga. It actually changes the neural pathway in your brain. And we need to do that sometimes. So deep breath. This tool will only take a couple of minutes. If you're standing, I want you to feel the soles of your feet on the floor or where your body is meeting the surface. Like if your body's meeting the surface of the chair, the backs of your thighs. You can rock back and forth, side to side. You can make circles with your knees. Just move your knees a little bit. Feeling the changes in the bottom of your feet as you do that. If you're standing or even sitting, you can move your legs. You can walk slowly or pick your legs up like you're in marching band and just notice how the bottoms of your feet, the feelings change as you move. You can come back to stillness. Wiggle your toes in your shoes, pushing the balls of your feet on the floor or the backs of your thighs on the chair, activating your foot in your shoe in any way you want. There is nothing magical about this. You are simply literally noticing your feet. And if they hurt, it doesn't ruin this practice. So focusing on something else besides what's going on in your head. Be where your feet are. Be where your anchor is for a few more moments. Bringing your attention all the way down from your head to the soles of your feet. The furthest place you can get from your head and what's going on in your head is the bottom of your feet. Take another deep breath. And if you're standing, you can go ahead and sit down. The next time you feel overloaded are a little anxious, or you're walking in and you have like too many patients to see on your list for the day, you can find your anchor, whether that's in your feet, your breath, or another sensation. All right, how do you feel right now? Just talk to me a little bit if you can. Just tell me what's going on. How do you feel in this moment? And then we'll talk about where to use this and how it works. And then we're going to get into feeling our feelings and what that's like too, and why we don't do that very well as chaplains sometimes. How do you feel right now?
I'll answer. I feel lighter than, like, emotionally a little bit lighter. It was kind of fun to, when not to just rock, but like to pay attention to how my feet felt when I was rocking. Also, just wanted to go on, for those of you who had just joined, if you can be on camera, that is preferred. Some people don't have camera, but for the rest of you, please come show us who you are. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, anybody else? How you feeling?
These are my favorite kinds of techniques. It reminds me of a technique case. We used to have a labyrinth at our hospital. They tore it up. That's another story. But walking the labyrinth and feeling your ankles roll, and there was a meditation for just, you're focusing on your ankles of all things. Yep. And I like focusing on things you take for granted. It's one of my favorite experiences.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Yeah. And Krista, are you still in Colorado? I see that you're unmuted.
I am unmuted. I'm in Idaho.
Oh, in Idaho. Okay.
Yeah, so similar weather. So I was just thinking that I do love types of grounding work because it helps my mind to stop spinning on every different thing. And it's a little cold outside. So I was helpful finding a different way to get the mind to stop spinning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay, we go one more. Anybody else have one more comment they want to make?
I have a headache and it was nice to, like Alan said, I love the grounding and finding my anchor. And I often forget that I can do that as a way to just keep focusing on the pain that's in my head. And so being able to shift focus and to be present and to feel the ground beneath me has helped to ease a little bit of that pain.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. And thanks for being here anyway, even with a headache. Like, I just want to honor that and say that was a choice you made. So yeah, this practice is cool because you don't have to go out to the labyrinth, and especially if it's been torn up, Alan, I get it. And you don't have to go anywhere. You can be standing outside the patient's room. You can be in the patient's room. You can actually be having a conversation and you're in your feet. I had a group of respiratory therapists one time. I was in a staff meeting with them. I do something called team-based resiliency rounds where I meet with teams and we work with this kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, talk to me, people, what's going on lately? And they were like, well, there's this family in the PICU, pediatric ICU, and they hate us. And I was like, what? They hate us. They know more about respiratory therapy, they think, than we do. And every time that we walk in the room, it starts. And we hate it when they're on our assignment list. We hate having to go to the room. We get to the room and go, oh. And at the end of the day, we're like, we hate our jobs, And by the time we walk in the room, walk out of the room, we're feeling all of the feelings of that family. And it's just awful. And I was like, all right, I'm going to teach you this finding your anchor thing. So they started doing it, and they would do it before they walked in the room. They were like, I'm in my feet. I'm in my feet. I'm in my feet. They would open the door. Hello, family. I'm in my feet. And they wouldn't be talking that out loud. And the family was just over here, just really spinning in their own anxiety and fear and anger, like we see as chaplains a lot of times. And the respiratory therapist would walk over and check the O2 and walk back around the bed. And they would say all the time, they said, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm in my feet. I'm in my feet. And they said, by the time they left, they hadn't been sucked into the vortex of the emotions of the family. And it really helped them. And they said what surprised them, which I wanted them to have the surprise, was they actually ended up with more compassion for them because they hadn't been so pulled into the emotions. I think as chaplains, we're pretty good. Maybe we're better with patients not doing it, but with staff, man, I don't know about you. You walk into a staff lounge or something and everybody's like, ah, and by the time you walk out, you're going, ah, because you're feeling their feelings. We're such empaths as chaplains. And this is a great technique to sort of separate out just a little bit ground where you are. This is my stuff. This is where I am. This is what's going on. And as Joanna said, it took her away from her brain and down into her something else. And as Malou said, same thing. And as Krista said, sometimes we're stuck up here. Our head is spinning about what's going on in a meeting, what someone just said. I'm second guessing what I just did with that patient. I had a 9-year-old throw me out of a room one time and I was like, I'm done. My friend was like, he's 9. It's okay. That I had just started in pediatric chaplaincy and I thought I was going to be terrible. He was 9. We got over it. It was his power play and it was great for him. So, you know, I learned a lot from him. But sometimes we need to pull out of this. I do this and you see me on the screen. I send a spin in my head. I'm either ruminating about what just happened. I'm second guessing myself. Maybe I'm being critical, or maybe I'm just trying to figure out the next thing. And if I will just get in my feet. Last example I will give you is I was co-chair of the ethics committee for a long time. And I went in a conversation with, let's see, how specific am I going to be? With a very powerful surgeon, let's just say that, who did not agree with what we were telling him about whether we should do the treatment on this particular kid or not. And man, he chewed me up and spit me out. He said I didn't believe in God, I wasn't a Christian. I mean, he threw everything he thought he could throw to upset me. He didn't realize I was a chaplain, so that really didn't, good. But it was pretty powerful. The energy in the room was strong. By the time I left, I actually started crying, and I don't cry very often, which is another thing I'm working on. But I was pretty shaken. He's a large man and gets red in the face, and that was powerful. My boss saw me walking down the hall and she just looked at me and she goes, Krista, get in your feet. That's all she said to me. So it was a moment for me to go, that's right. Get in my feet. So that's how I want you to use this practice. That fast, that quick, that instantaneous, wherever you are in the middle of what you're doing, get in your feet. If your feet aren't accessible, I'll do this sometimes when you're walking in the room and you're putting the antibiotic stuff on your hands. Just focus on your hands. Feel them. And there's tons of neuroscience research about the physiological effects of this. And what it's doing is it's breaking the neuropathway that's spinning. It's severing it sort of and getting you back grounded. And then it's pulling you out of your amygdala back into your prefrontal cortex, which allows you to make better decisions, to be honest. And sometimes we're needing to make decisions, even as chaplains, that can be pretty critical in a moment, especially with difficult families. So whenever you're feeling entangled with the pain of the story of a patient or a family, you need to separate from that. Great way. So I'm going to move on a little bit into doing another practice with you, because what I want to get into is talking about feeling and naming emotions. I think I was telling Malou as we were planning for this, I think as chaplains especially, we're really good at identifying everybody else's emotions. I can tell you what I might be, and I'm not saying I'm always right, but we're writing verbatims or we're doing stuff. I can go, oh, this family's really sad. Or even if I'm not saying it out loud, I might say, you're sad. But I might in my head go, well, this is what they're really struggling with. And I'm identifying the emotions of the people around me, or they're frustrated or they're angry. But I'm also really good at compartmentalizing my own, because sometimes the space doesn't allow me to have room for it. It feels like there's no room in this space for me to be angry too, because then it's just a mess. And then we're all entangled, and then that's not helpful. We're going to talk a little bit more in the third session with me in April. We're going to talk a little bit more about entangling with compassion and empathy. It's my favorite one. So come back to that, or make sure you watch it on video, because that's what's coming. But today I just want to talk about what it means to feel and name emotions. I think we're better at doing it for other people than we are for ourselves. So I want to take you into, before I take you into this one practice, and the reason why I introduced you to finding your anchor is because you've got that now. If we start talking about feeling and naming emotions, you're like, I don't want to do this. Go find your feet again. Okay, just get on your feet. So I wanted you to have that as a tool before I even started talking about this. Why do you think, and I sort of answered it some, but why do you think that we are and again, I think it's okay to have this recorded because we're talking in general terms, not specific necessarily, if anybody wants to be anonymous. Like, why do you think chaplains in general are not really good at identifying our own stuff, our own emotions? What do you think that's about? Or maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe you think we are good at figuring it out. And so that's okay too. You can always push back anytime.
I think it's an attempt to protect ourselves because of the spaces and places that we tread so freely.
Yeah, because we're the people that tend to be in the space with all the feels. Okay, so as a protection mode. Yeah, Krista, what do y'all think?
It's a way to avoid it. I'm very good at avoiding my own emotions and feeling like I've solved somebody else's emotions than feeling mine. I've taken care of somebody else. It's like, that's a win. I don't want to deal with what I got to deal with.
Yeah. Thank you for being willing to share that. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a win. And then, but those of you who have been doing chaplaincy a while know, it's like, I talk about this, the metaphorical closet. Like, here's my little closet door. Okay. And so I take my field, if I can identify it, I shove it. I have no idea what, I just shove it in that closet and close the door really fast. And like, I do that with a whole bunch of things. And then I have no idea what's in the closet. And then one day what happens? The door opens and it all falls out. And then I don't even know what's there. And like, I just feel crappy and I don't even know why, because there's just such a mess of stuff in there that I haven't had time to deal with. Right. And I've had people, I teach this, we taught over 700 people the kind of stuff we do. Woo, we just teach, I just said that to Magnet a few minutes ago. So we taught over 700 people, but anyway, I've had people tell me, but compartmentalization worked for me for a minute. It worked me for like 20 years and then it didn't. All of a sudden it didn't. So what we're going to do in this next tool is work with labeling and feeling emotions. And I'll take you through it kind of intentionally. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit. And then I'm going to give you another practice that works with this. But I want you to get comfortable. So trust me, you're doing great. Appreciate doing that. Get comfortable in your position and you close your eyes if you want to, because I'm going to ask you to think about a patient or a situation. So the only reason why closing your eyes helps, it just helps to keep you from distraction. But I want you to consider a recent situation that has been mildly unsettling for you. A situation can be related to your professional life as a chaplain or your personal life. Choose something that doesn't overload you so much that you're like wanting to turn off and leave the class. But something that you feel mildly uncomfortable about. Maybe it was some people, we talked about this last time, hospitals not recognizing the significance of a chaplain and being in a meeting, you're like, really, people? Or maybe it was sitting with someone in some pain. Maybe it was sitting with a staff member struggling with their own health issues. But choose something that makes you at least a little bit uncomfortable. And you might immediately go to something really difficult, but take a few moments to move to something lighter if you can. And I want you to, if you can, think of a specific situation. Okay? And I want you to clearly think about that situation, including who's involved, what happened, or what might have happened, or might happen. And always, if we've started this and you're like, I don't want to play. I thought I did, but I don't, find your feet. Just get in your feet. But if you can stay with me, it's not super long. We're just going to kind of play with this for a moment and give ourselves an experience of this. So you're thinking about that situation, who's involved, what happened, what might have happened, who's there. I want you to start noticing what you feel in your body. I want you to move your attention from your head down to your toes. Like, as you started thinking about this patient or this person or that situation, did you start noticing your shoulders creeping up a little bit? Or was your jaw getting tight? Are you feeling some discomfort or some tension in your body physically? Maybe in your neck or your chest or your belly. It's okay if you didn't feel anything, but sometimes our bodies are cluing us in and we're just not paying attention. Now that you've sort of noticed, oh yeah, it shows up in my shoulders. Okay. You might have known that already, but You didn't know it about this situation you were thinking about. I want you to see if you can identify an emotion that you're having. Frustration, anger, sadness, fear, grief, anxiety. How'd you think of a difficult situation that was unsettling to you? So I didn't name any positive emotions because I'm figuring it was an unsettling situation. So see if you can identify an emotion. And if you can't, that's okay too. Just go back to where you were feeling it in your body. But if you can, just notice and see if you can give it a name. You can actually name it. Go, oh, that's what that is. And take a deep breath. Well, now as you're breathing, inhaling and exhaling, see as you exhale, if you can name the emotion, you could say like you inhale, then you go like, then you might say anger. Yeah, that's what that is. This is anger. Inhale and then kind of say, yeah. As you exhale, this is whatever it is. Just name it out loud to yourself or in your head, but say it to yourself. That's what this is. Take a few deep breaths in and out, repeating the name of the emotion as you do. Just naming whatever's showing up. And perhaps the emotion starts to change as you breathe. And if so, name the new emotion. Sometimes just generalized stress changes to grief and you realize, oh, that's what that was. I was grieving. If it changes, name the new emotion. If it doesn't change, that's okay too. Just notice whatever you're experiencing. As I said before, if you're not able to pick out an emotion, some of us don't have a lot of emotional vocabulary, even as chaplains. So if so, just keep paying attention to what your body is telling you physically. Now come back to noticing your body. Check in again from your head to your toes, and you can open your eyes if they were closed. Okay, we're going to break this down and talk about it, and I'm going to talk about the research too. And with me, if you ever are thinking about using this or wanting to, you need proof, just call me, just email me. I'll send you I have 2 pages of reference articles for each thing. But what did you notice with that? What physical sensations did you notice during that tool, that exercise? Anything that came up that surprised you? Or if it didn't surprise you, just oh, yeah.
I was feeling some anxiety about a family meeting I'm getting ready to be in as soon as this is over. And so I was feeling that in my stomach. I was like, oh, but now my stomach just feels bigger and more room and more air in it, which may not be a good thing to have too much more air in it, but.
That's good. Thanks, Peggy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And you may have known that was there, but now you're like, oh. All right, Linda, you unmuted. What you got?
I have neck pain anyway, but I noticed that I was stretching my neck while I was thinking of that situation. So I'm not sure the situation caused the neck pain, but it was active. Mm-hmm. My neck was needing to be stretched while I felt it, and also felt a little tightness in my belly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about this last time, that if you can be aware of what's happening, then you have power again. You can go, oh, I'm going to stretch my neck. Oh, I'm but if I don't pay attention, I don't have an opportunity to kind of do this. But if I can be aware of it, I can move it a little bit. Yeah. All right, anybody else?
I noticed a little bit of a shifting, when I first was thinking of the situation where I felt tension was more so in my we're all adults, in the bra line of my back. I don't know what part of the back you call that. So, okay. Mm-hmm. But then when you asked about find the emotion, it switched. And then I did feel the tension like you, Linda. Then I had to I was stretching my neck and moving it and massaging it. I just thought that was interesting. It's almost like referral pain almost. I don't know. But yeah, so that, I thought that was really, I appreciated that.
Yeah. We talked about physical pains kind of shifting. Did anybody's emotional stuff come up for them? Were you able to go, oh, that's what that feeling is? And then as I thought about it some more, the emotion changed. Anybody have that happen to them? Krista unmuted. Yeah. What you got?
Yeah, I did. The emotion I had was disappointment, and it was like very top of my stomach, just really hot right there. But as we were breathing, the emotion changed and the tightness shifted to my shoulders and jaw in this kind of anger of injustice, of like wanting to do something about it as I was breathing, and then frustrated because I don't know what to do about it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for being willing to play this, because sometimes people do this with me and they're like, thanks, Krista. Now I'm feeling a heavier emotion and I don't like it. but what we find when we do this sometimes is there's something underneath. Like we're like, oh yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm kind of sad. Oh no, I'm mad. Like we realize underneath there's something else. Yeah. So, Stacey Morgan, I just see you. Come on. Hey. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the emotions are really, really interesting. And I was doing this one time with a group of surgeons, and one of the surgeons, we started this practice and she was like, whatever, in her good surgeon mode. And then she said, I just feel, and she said, I just felt stressed, period. I don't know what emotion I have. And she said, as I started doing this with her, she said, all of a sudden I realized underneath that, as I was breathing, stress was grief. And she said, oh my goodness, I had no idea that was what was under that. And then you know what her reaction was, which is a good surgeon reaction. She said, oh, well, now that I know what it is, I can do something about that.
Cut it out.
Mm-hmm. So she also, as we are good compartmentalizers, when you compartmentalize so much, you lose power. You lose the ability to make choice about things. She was like, oh, now that I know it's grief, I can do something with that. Stress felt very amorphous, but as she let herself go there and go a little deeper, she found what was underneath it. So Krista, you found injustice underneath it and like frustration with that. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a little bit bigger than disappointment. So sometimes that can happen. Another one I'll give you was another colleague of mine who was tended to not be really easy to get along with. And I won't tell you what profession she was in, but she was mad that she didn't get a good handoff from her colleague about the patient she was going to go see and the family she was going to go see. And she was pretty ticked off. And so she was kind of acting out on the unit. And she was like, dang it, if I didn't do that name it to tame it thingy. I'm about to talk about that in a second. So I was like, Krista's going to make me think. If she were here, she would say, what are you feeling? And I'd be like, whatever. So she did it. And what she realized, first, she was angry. But what she realized underneath it, oh my goodness, she was scared that she was going to make a mistake because she didn't get a good handoff. And she was like, oh. And once she realized that was underneath it, she quit yelling at everybody. Because she realized that was because she's afraid she's going to make a mistake. So feelings, emotions. So let's talk about it for a moment. When we locate emotions in our bodies, and some of you have done the reading on this kind of stuff, there's a really pithy saying we use called feel it to heal it. And I'm looking, I've got the reference and I'm like, who's the guy that says it? If somebody knows, it's just not jumping off the page at me because I don't have it written right in front of me. But he says, feel it to heal it. And what he means like that is you got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel it to move into it, to make it move. In the book called A Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor, she's a neuro anatomist. It's an old book, but she says, a feeling is likely to dissipate in 90 seconds if it's not fueled by thoughts or if we're not brooding on it. Turning our attention to our bodies can help us untangle from the story that's causing our emotional reaction and allow the emotion to move through us. What I think we do as humans, we do as chaplains, is we just go, I don't have time to be angry or feel it or move through it. So I'm just going to shove it over here. The problem is if we don't feel it somewhat, it gets stuck. And then it just sits there. And it just like becomes a fulminating pustule, as my mother would say. It's very graphic, but it just does. I mean, when I had cancer a couple of years ago, this would happen. I had days when I'd wake up and I'd be like, this is a bad day. And if I would just own it and go, this is just, okay, I'm just going to just get all in that. Then it would move. If I just pretended like everything was fine, it was just simmering underneath. So feel it to heal it, feel it to heal it is that stuff. The second pithy phrase, which comes from Siegel and Bryson, I do have that one named, is called name it to tame it. And that gets to what we were just experiencing as well. In scientific experiments, they did some experiments with fMRIs, so the functional MRIs, where they were able to show that if someone labeled an emotion, it decreased the activity in that area of the brain where that emotion was showing up in the amygdala, while the activity in the areas of the prefrontal cortex would increase. So, interesting. All these years we've been compartmentalizing, thinking that made us better at our work as healthcare providers, when what we really know from research is it's actually causing more problems. Because if I'm stuck in my amygdala with this unknown emotion that's sort of under the surface affecting everything, it's not allowing me to move back into my prefrontal cortex. And if I will just name it, go, oh, that's what it is, then as that surgeon said, I can do something about it. Now, sometimes we are in circumstances where we can't do something about it right then. And what we've seen in our research, which is fascinating, and we're starting to enter into some, hopefully some neuroscience research. That's our next collaboration that we're looking for. We're finding that if someone will just say, let's imagine you're in the ER, you're in the ED, or whichever you want to call it. You're in the ED, you walked out of the trauma room, the patient's dead. They've died, we've done this, we've all been there. And you have to go to another room that they want you in. I mean, this happens for physicians and stuff, but it happens for us as chaplains too. You have to go to another room and they're mad because you're late and you haven't gotten there. And where were you? You told me you were coming back at noon and it's like 3 o'clock and really? Thanks. And you can't say, well, you're alive. The person I was just with for 3 hours that made me late is dead, so get over it. I mean, you can't do that. So you're in this place of like, I'm feeling these emotions out of that room I just walked out of. I'm feeling sad, maybe because there was a death. Maybe I'm angry if it was child abuse. I have some anger. So I can't take that emotion into the next patient room with me. I can't. So I do have to open my metaphorical closet, like I said, and take that emotion. But if I can just name it, if I can just say, yeah, I'm really angry about that situation in that ER, or I'm really sad right now. If I can just name it, even if I put it away and close the metaphorical closet, at least now when I go back to the closet and open it up, oh, there's anger. I know what that is and I know what that's related to. And I can work with it. What we're finding and what the research shows is that that's just as powerful if you just give it a name. I didn't understand that before, but it's really interesting. So keep that in mind. If you're like, I don't have time to feel my feels in the middle of my work as a hospice person, Alan, you can do this and then go back to it. But as one of our physical therapists said to me, but then I have to make an appointment to make sure I go back to it and open that door and go get it and deal with it. And sometimes that's when I'm driving home. Sometimes that's maybe in a chaplain staff meeting. Sometimes that's at lunch talking to a friend. Sometimes it's at my vacation 3 weeks later, or when I'm hiking with my friend on Sundays. I mean, you have to go back and get it. I like to say we can Maria Kontu our closets, because if you know the reference to the lady that tells everybody to get rid of things they don't need. I think what most of us what I found in chaplaincy for years was my closet, like we said, was just a bundle of messy stuff, and I didn't even know it was there. And now I kind of know what's there. I can open the door and go, oh yeah, that's that feeling from the magnet conference a few hours ago. Oh yeah, and that is my mom in the other room, sick from COVID. Okay. And then I can take it. I can call my friend tonight and we can talk about what happens with my mom, and I can take it. And in the end, I got stuff in my closet, absolutely, but I at least know what it is. And that may take a bit to get that cleaned out. But the amygdala, a couple of more things. Amygdala, that part of the brain, perceives threat in our environment, triggering our fight and flight response. Our sympathetic nervous system gets activated. I do a lot of talks with neuroscientists. So naming our emotions reduces the physiological reactivity. So you were talking about, Linda, how your neck sort of shifted a little bit. And you're like, okay, if I can just give it a name, it actually kind of changes the physiology too of where the emotion is in the body, which is interesting. And naming our emotions, if you want to be in a less reactive state, I say, like when you're taking care of patients, you want to be less reactive. We've convinced ourselves that we shouldn't acknowledge the emotions, where actually, if we can acknowledge them, it makes us much more able to connect and much more able to be available to them in that experience, even if we have to deal with it later. Recognizing our feelings, like I said with that surgeon, gives us the opportunity to influence them too. When I can notice what's happening in the moment, I have choice about how I respond. Awareness allows us to assess what we need and make an adjustment if possible. Like I may notice underneath is a lot of anger. Sometimes I'll find that, like you were finding, Krista, my justice nerves were coming up and I'm like, yeah, this is wrong. If that's what's there and I know that's there, then that gives me choice before I open up my mouth. I can be reactive and that may not be helpful, but if I know it's there, then I can go, okay, I'm really angry about this. I think I need to not say anything yet until I have a chance to be really thoughtful about what's going to come out. And that gives us more power and more control. People like agency is the word that you use, but I work in healthcare. People like control, gives you more control. You're not as reactive. I tell this to surgeons and other physicians that sometimes will be like very reactive. I'm like, I got to tell you, that's not your best self. And in that, you're actually not in the better part of your brain where you make better decisions. That becomes a more convincing conversation. So let's see what else I wanted to tell you. Okay, a couple of quotes. Brene Brown has one. Everybody's got a quote. Brene Brown, she says, when you name an emotion or an experience, it doesn't give that emotion or experience more power. It gives us more power. You have to go to your emotions before you can go through them. That's Susan David. She has a great book on emotional agility. If you want to read her stuff, she's got some really cool stuff. We use her a lot. Susan David. Viktor Frankl, or it's attributed to Viktor Frankl, but nobody knows if he actually said it, just so you know, if you go to look it up. But he has this, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. I bet he had to decide what he was going on before he responded, or he would have been killed. So, all right. Questions, thoughts, anything you want to throw in? Because I have a couple last things we're going to do. One is how this really affects our patients, because it does. We think it doesn't, but it does, and our staff. And then what are some of the side effects that can happen when we start getting aware of our emotions? Because the side effects, I need to prepare you. There are some side effects, kind of like with medicine, but we'll talk about that. But any other comments or questions anybody wants to give? And seeing Stacey Morgan has me like all verklempt because I haven't seen her in many, many years. Old friends. Is this hitting bells with people? Helpful, thoughtful? You can do it fast too. A lot of times I'll be like, okay, what is going on with me? Okay, feel it to heal it, name it, tame it. What is it? Okay. It's that fast. Another example I'll give you, we had a physician that several years ago was kidnapped or held hostage, more like, and then murdered by an intruder at her clinic. It was devastating to our community, just devastating. She was a pediatrician, loved, all of the staff went to her with their kids. I mean, it was devastating. And I was working with several groups in this, and one of the groups had worked with me for many years. And so it was one of the intensivists. I'll never forget. And she looked at her team and she goes, people, we just got to feel it to heal it. We got to name it to tame it. We're upset. We're angry. We're grieving. We just have to feel it. Come on. And she pushed them to process because they were obviously stuck in shock and struggle. And that team did pretty well through that. And there's not a way to do well through that. Stacey says, what strategies do you use or recommend during the space between stimulus and response? Yeah, sometimes that's a great question. Great way of pulling in Viktor Frankl's wonderful quote. Sometimes when that's that space when I'm starting to recognize what's happening, whether that's my shoulders are up here, whether that's oh, I'm having something else is happening here. Pay attention. Don't be afraid to pay attention. If you're starting to notice something and you can't move into it at all in that moment, and I recognize that, I know how our lives are, notice it enough to come back to it. If you can, step away and go to the bathroom for a second and go, what is going on with me? That will help. So giving yourself some space, because that's what he talks about in that statement, is that he said there is space there. So recognize that exists. I think sometimes we don't realize that there is space between recognizing something's going on and before we react. We just react. And what Viktor Frankl's saying, wait, people, there is space here. You're just not seeing it. But in that space is that power to choose. So I think just awareness and recognition is the biggest part of that. And even if you'd have to come back to it later. You want to comment on it, Stacy? Questions or thoughts you have?
Okay. Loud environment. And so, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like sometimes so much is coming at us so quickly. And while I can compute, my body is already responding, my heart rate has increased or my breath has shortened, and so I wonder sometimes, like, I don't know, I've tried different things over the years and different things just this last week. But just wondering kind of for you or for the group, like, for me, sometimes it's just really trying to slow my breathing so that I can tell my body that, there's no immediate danger.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, from you or the group, if there are other things that people have tried that seem to really help, in a sense, lengthen that moment, that space between.
Yeah, I think you're pulling us into some really good conversation around this, because yes, I think the biggest first step though is recognizing, oh, my heart rate's up. I mean, how many times have I gone the whole entire day? And then I used to walk out through the ER exit. I don't anymore after COVID started, but and I would have to pee. And then I'd be like, how long has it been since I peed? Like 12 hours. I have no idea. I didn't even feel a response. I didn't even know I needed to pee. How long has it been since I've had water? How long has it been since I've eaten? That first piece is that awareness of what's happening so I can have a choice. And if you notice, like Linda was saying, I noticed my neck was sore. Oh, if I do that once during the day, by the end of the day, I'm not like this. Like, I am a little bit more aware. And so I'm not as jacked up as I would have been if I wasn't paying attention. I'm not as hungry. And I used to think that if I just kept moving to the next thing in reaction mode, that was going to be the right thing. And anybody that's doing this for a while, you begin to see that doesn't work. If I will eat a kind bar, I know you're dying, this kid is dying and I'm in the middle of this story, but if I stay in there for like 6 hours, and we just don't teach that really well in chaplaincy, that idea of, wait, I need glucose in my body. I need to breathe. I need to get in my feet. That exercise we did in the beginning, sometimes it's just that. Get in your feet, Krista, just get in your feet right now, which is a breath too. But if this physical piece of me is a powerful tool to pull me out of reactive mode, if I'll pay attention. When I was learning this, even still, I still don't always do a great job, but I'd set a reminder on my phone. Okay, how you doing? Oh, you need to pee. Oh, it would go off, and whatever it would do. Something to just trigger me to. And then as I work with my team, we're better and better about looking at each other and going, "Have you eaten? You doing? Oh, yeah." Pulling back to reality of the physicality. Your physical body is a resource to you that I think we get really good at ignoring, and that's a part of what we're taught in medicine. Indirectly at least. Okay, effects on our patients. So staying in touch with our own humanity and our bodies for some people in the presence of our patients actually fosters connection with them. I don't think I have to tell you that, but it does. I think a lot of people, wonder about that. But in fact, there's evidence. There's evidence that healthcare professionals' awareness and mindfulness is associated with greater patient satisfaction scores. Not that I've told you we're having magnet at my hospital this week. So yeah, but it is better patient outcomes, better patient-centered care. There's a great study by Braun, Kinzer, and Rybarczyk in 2019 about that. And in contrast, when we shut ourselves down, it can be harder to empathize with our patients and our families and our coworkers. And we think, well, I'm not shut down, I'm just compartmentalizing it. But if you're really disconnected, you're shut down. And we know what happens if you shut down a lot, you end up not feeling anything, which we'll talk about in the last session in April. There was a pediatric patient's mom that I was working with, and her daughter has had more than 50 brain surgeries. She's a friend now in a way. I mean, I know her and I see her a lot. I guess she would probably consider me a friend too. But she had a lot of brain surgeries, and you better believe it that in 50 surgeries on her daughter, there were some mistakes that were made, some medical mistakes that were made. Infiltrated IVs, some, wrong IV thing hung. And she said, the physician that I knew, that I felt his humanity, I felt his connection, and it happened to be a male. I'm not just using that term indiscriminately. She said, when he would come to me and he'd go, all right, Mrs. So-and-so, here's what's going on. She said, I would just go, oh, okay, so what are we going to do about it? Because I felt this connection. The one that came to me with the flatness or the disconnection or the very removed sense of emotional connection, she said, I was ready to sue him when he came to me and told me the exact same thing, that guy. So I think we have to keep that in mind. I mean, we're not the ones necessarily getting sued as chaplains, but I think sometimes we think compartmentalizing is going to be the best bet because they don't need to feel our emotions. They don't have to feel our reaction, but they can feel our connection. And I think that can be important. I mean, when we numb ourselves, and some of us get to the place where that's where we've come and as chaplains, when we numb ourselves, we tend to numb ourselves both to the negative and the positive. You ever notice that? So we can't selectively numb ourselves, in other words. Positive emotions can sustain us through really hard times. So it's important to be able to feel them. One of the nurses I was working with during COVID said that at our hospital, at one of the adult hospitals, they would do code sunshine when a patient was going home after 6 months of having COVID, and they would all dance and do a little thing. And she was like, yeah, whatever, when that happened. Because she says, wow, I've just gotten really numb. So even the positive and positive goes away too. And I like to say, when we compartmentalize between 7 and 7 or 8 and 5 or whatever our schedules are, it's not like we can go, okay, I'm home now. I'm now emotionally available to all of my family. Hello, family. It's very hard to do that. Whereas if during the day, I can at least be aware of the stimulus going on in my body, I can be aware of the emotions happening, then I'm working it as I'm moving through the day. And as I go home, I'm not having to make a quick shift because that just doesn't work. That's why a lot of people get divorced that are in healthcare because they can't make that shift when they get home. So feeling it during the day, feeling your body during the day allows you to make adjustments during the day such that you don't have to get home and be so full to try to turn it in the moment. Last thing I tell you, side effects of a dose of awareness. So I've got about 3 minutes, I think, left, but I said I had cancer a couple of years ago. And so I had a lot of side effects, just saying. I still have some side effects from some of the stuff I took. But yeah, when we have side effects to medication, what do people do when you have a side effect, when you've got like itching or, I don't know, nausea? What do you do? What do people do? What do the nurses do for them when they have side effects?
Give you another one, another medication.
Yeah, just give you another medication. Woohoo! I've tried all the anti-nausea drugs on the market. Why do they do that? Because they know that you still need the medication. You still need to do it. And there's not something better. And so we're just going to give you something to treat the side effects so that you can get through it. It's kind of like this with being aware. So as you start being aware of your feelings and your emotions in your body, you may go, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't very fun because there's a lot in my closet and Maria Cantu hasn't come and cleaned it out yet. So I just want to say there can be some side effects. And you may feel more overwhelmed. You may feel more unsteady or unsure of yourself when you're with patients and be like, wait, that wasn't helpful, Krista. And I'm just saying, the research shows we've got to feel it to heal it, name it to tame it. So, okay, move a little more slowly. What do they do with their medication dose? They titrate the dose, right? They slow it down. They slow it down so it doesn't go quite so fast, and then their body can absorb it better. Okay, so titrate the dose. Don't have like a big emotional feel moment for 30 minutes and then have to go take care of a patient. You might say, okay, I'm going to look at this for a few minutes and I'm going to put it back in my closet and I'm going to come back to it later today. So be thoughtful about the dosage. And then last, add a supportive agent, like finding your anchor, go get in your feet. Do something like that. A supportive agent is like the anti-nausea drugs or the Benadryl. Or last one, or find an alternative treatment. Distract yourself. Do something else. Move away from it until you're ready to be inside it again. Our goal is to stay in the sweet spot, and this is where I'll end, where you're not overloaded or underwater, but you are challenging yourself to feel what's going on, using that information from your body and your heart and your soul to make you even more connected to yourself and the people around you. That's what makes you a good chaplain. I didn't learn that for a long, long time, and I burned out a lot. And now I don't. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you in April. I'll be back. Really great to be with all of you.
Thank you all for being here. Again, Krista, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a whole page of notes, but more importantly, I have some actual things I can do. And that's more important than my notes, to be honest. So yeah, thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you guys at our last one in April.
Yeah, we're going to talk about compassion with healthy boundaries. I'm
looking forward to it. All right, y'all be good to yourselves today. Do something good and kind. All right. See y'all.